Hi, this is Kylie with Fim and Flow. I hope everyone's having a great day. Today, I want to talk about how we can be more embodied. When I say embodied, I mean that our physical vessel or our physical body is able to energetically hold more of our soul. Embodiment is essentially just being able to store more of our soul in this body. Our physical body has to energetically be able to store that data and information. Essentially, our soul is data and information. It's data, information, energy from all of our different lifetimes, all of the knowledge and wisdom we've picked up through our different experiences in our eternal lives. And if you've listened to my other episodes on the different realms and experiences that we live our eternal lives in, then you may know this already. But when I say lifetimes, it may not be what we traditionally think. In the experiences or realms that we build our eternal lives in, they are completely free and it's all bliss and it's what we archetypally call heaven. And in those realms, we never get trapped into one life like we do here on earth. In those experiences, we pop around to whatever experience or realm that we want. And it's all free. We do what we want. It's bliss. It's wonderful. So when I say lifetime, it's not a lifetime like we think of here. You may have heard people talk about how all of these different lifetimes you're living actually are all happening simultaneously. And it's kind of hard to wrap your head around, but think of it in terms of there's all these different realms. And outside of this, we can actually just pop around using our Merkaba light body and pop in and out of those different experiences. Think of it in terms of that. Don't think of it in terms of you have to be born and you die. And it's this finite timeline where you're stuck in one body, you're stuck in one experience. In the heavenly realms, things do not operate like they do here on earth during this time. It's all freedom, it's all bliss. You're not essentially trapped in one finite timeline of a life. So now let's move back to the idea of embodiment. So I already said that when I say embodied, I mean that our physical vessel or our physical body is able to energetically hold more of our soul. Remember, in physical experiences, we operate in a holy trinity, which is our mind, body, and spirit. Or, in other words, our consciousness, body, and our soul. This Holy Trinity is how we operate in the physical experiences. Our consciousness is essentially our viewpoint and our reality projector. Remember, reality is observer dependent. Our body is our energetic tool that radiates and conducts energy. That energy that our body is conducting is the energy that our consciousness uses to project our reality. This is all very tied together. If you listen to all my podcasts, you know that I talk about how each emotion has a unique frequency or vibration. The emotions that we're radiating do end up creating our reality. We are constantly creating our reality whether we know it or not. That ties into what I'm talking about here. So I just said our consciousness is our viewpoint and it's our reality projector. Remember, we should always be the observer and not immediately tie emotion to a situation going on. We need to be a observer, not get emotionally tied up in everything. And that's because with our viewpoint, how we are viewing our reality is going to impact what we project. Think about it this way. If we are walking around in the physical experience and a situation arises, our personal viewpoint is going to depend which emotional frequency we put out. And when I say reality is observer dependent, this is where it comes into play. Your consciousness will have a different viewpoint than me. And for the same situation, we might radiate different frequencies because of that situation. So our consciousness is our viewpoint and it takes a situation, puts out a frequency towards it. Our body is then radiating and conducting that frequency that our emotional response causes. Our body then conducts that energy, and our toroidal flow of energy causes that frequency to go out into the quantum field where there's endless strings of energy vibrating at different frequencies. When the emotion we put out comes into contact with one of those waves of energy, that wave then turns into a particle of the same frequency of the emotion that we sent out. And then that is pulled back into our reality. That is how our reality is observer dependent. Because then our consciousness takes that energy again that we just pulled back and projects it into our reality. Without our Holy Trinity and our consciousness, nothing is actually real or physical or material. We have to have this Holy Trinity operating how I'm explaining so we can translate this energy into reality. And we translate it by just projecting it. So the third point of our Holy Trinity that I didn't mention yet is our soul. Our soul is our data and information storage bank. All of the data, wisdom, and insight picked up from our eternal lives is stored in our soul. To be an old soul is to be a big soul. So, through this whole process, from our consciousness having a viewpoint, sending out a frequency depending on our point of view, and that frequency being conducted by our physical body, which is our physical tool, that is conducting and radiating out into the quantum field, where I talked about there's endless strings of energy vibrating at different frequencies. And then our energetic tool is pulling that back in, and then that energy is being projected again by our consciousness. This whole process, everything we learn from this never ending process, that is all energy that's being stored in our soul or our information bank. Now let's touch on the concept of our higher self. I want to touch on this because we need to differentiate our higher self from the idea of embodiment. I think those two things could potentially get mixed up when you just hear these terms. Our higher self is the version of ourselves living in realms or experiences that fully resonate with higher dimensional energies, or the realms we archetypally call heaven. And if you listen to my other podcast episodes, you know these are the realms or experiences that are generated from a white hole. You can be energetically fully aligned with your higher self, but still not be 100% embodied. And remember, the term embodiment refers to how much of our soul or our data information bank is in our body. Our physical body has to be able to energetically hold all of this information and data. We'll get more into this in a little bit. When you are energetically fully aligned with your higher self, that means you are connected and following your intuition. You are very in flow and you're listening and tapped into higher guidance. This life on earth will be much easier when you are aligned with your higher self. When you are aligned with your higher self, you will also be living more authentically, which will in turn make you happier. To be aligned with your higher self can be viewed as more of the mental piece of all of this. So, while being energetically aligned with your higher self could be viewed as more of the mental piece, being fully embodied can be viewed more as the physical piece that then allows an even deeper energetic connection and anchors in more of your soul. The soul can be viewed as your eternal knowledge bank. This includes lessons learned through all incarnations, spiritual knowledge you've learned, wisdom you've learned, and all data tied to you. This is different than receiving divine insight or divine wisdom because that is gained when we connect energetically and tap into eighth dimensional God or source energy. But as soon as we tap in and gain wisdom or knowledge, then that does become part of our soul. Because we experience that firsthand, then it is stored in our knowledge bank, which is our soul. In white hole experiences, which are the fully free, totally blissful, heavenly realms where we fully resonate with higher dimensional energies, just because we fully resonate with eighth dimensional God or source energy doesn't mean we automatically have all of this knowledge stored in our soul. It's there to access, but we must tap in or use intention to pull that energy from source. But then, as soon as we do and we have that firsthand experience with it, then it's stored in the soul. So essentially, in these fully free, blissful, white hole experiences that we archetypally call heaven, just because we fully resonate with all higher dimensional energy, including source energy, doesn't mean we automatically know all. We still have eternity and we have this beautiful journey of having experiences, tapping in, gaining knowledge, and storing it in our soul. But remember, in a white hole experience, everything is in resonance with the solfeggio frequencies, which we call the voice of God. And there's no duality or polarity. So even though you're going through this journey and learning lessons and gaining knowledge, all of it is completely in resonance with love and bliss. You're not having to suffer or go through any sort of pain to learn lessons. It seems like here on earth, we're taught that you have to suffer and go through hard times and have trials and tribulations in order to grow and learn lessons. But that is absolutely not the case in the heavenly realms. You just have fun, you live in bliss, you live in love, and you learn your lessons and grow your soul that way. As you can imagine, the soul can get so big. Remember, we operate in the Holy Trinity. We have a consciousness, body, and soul. At some point, the soul gets so big that a fractal breaks off or is created. That means one soul will then have two different consciousnesses and two bodies or vessels. This means that one soul information bank is having two separate experiences. Then both consciousnesses that are having two separate experiences, all of that info, wisdom, and knowledge gained goes back and is stored in that same soul information bank. And this concept is what some call a twin flame. All twin flames begin as the divine feminine, then it splits into two different counterparts, the divine feminine and the divine masculine. And actually, every Holy Trinity begins as the divine feminine energy. But this is not the case on earth. This is the case in higher realms. I mean that every original energy is divine feminine energy. That means source energy is feminine energy. We get divine masculine energy by dividing it from the feminine. And this is why it's so powerful when the divine feminine and divine masculine counterparts come together. It creates a synergy and an energy bigger than its parts. For example, when you have these two counterparts come together, 2 plus 2 doesn't equal 4, it equals 10. All of this energy is magnified and the whole is bigger than the parts. By saying all of this, I don't mean that if you are a divine masculine living here on earth, that means you have split from a divine feminine or a part of a twin flame union. Twin flame unions are relatively rare. That's how it works on the big picture outside of this in the higher realms. What I just said does not necessarily translate to this earth experience. This might be a little confusing, but I've talked about it before. In every physical experience, we have a fourth dimension, and the fourth dimension is essentially a filter for the energy. It's a veil, it's a canopy over the physical experiences, and it essentially sets up the fairy tale land or sets the vibe of that physical experience. And the fourth dimension is the realm of archetypes, myths, and the collective mind. It's essentially the programming or the matrix that sets up the physical. I've mentioned before that one of the original archetypes of Earth was the idea of sacred unions and the divine feminine and masculine energies. So, on the bigger picture, macrocosm level, it doesn't matter which energy you are, divine feminine or divine masculine, because then if you choose to incarnate onto Earth, your energy is then filtered through the fourth dimensional matrix or programming, and you can choose if you want to be physically expressed in the divine feminine or the divine masculine energy. And when you're just physically expressed as an energy, that is essentially an archetype. I've talked about macrocosms and microcosms in other episodes, but this can be viewed in that way. On the macrocosm, when a soul gets so big that a fractal is then created, two bodies and two consciousnesses can be linked up to one soul or information bank. That can be viewed as how all of this energy works on the grand big scale. But then you can view this earth experience, divine feminine, divine masculine energies, as a microcosm to that macrocosm. Hopefully that all makes sense. I know it can be a little confusing and it's very nuanced. So, how I mentioned that at some point the soul gets so big that a fractal is created, you can also view that as the concept of mitosis of a cell. And that's when one cell splits off into two separate cells. That is how this entire universe works. So, back to where I said every Holy Trinity begins as the divine feminine energy. And that means that every original energy is divine feminine energy. And that also means that source energy is divine feminine energy. If all of that seems weird, just think about how women have a womb, and the womb is literally a portal to the spiritual world. And also think about how on the other podcast episodes where I talked about divine feminine and divine masculine energies, I talked about how the divine feminine works more with intuition. It's more of the spiritual counterpart. The divine feminine does the work in the spiritual and the unseen, while the divine masculine does the work in the physical. And the divine masculine needs to protect the divine feminine and make the divine feminine feel safe in this physical reality so she can do that spiritual work. And I said he or she, but it's not really about that. While living in this earth experience, we all need to have a balance of divine feminine and divine masculine energy. But then, yes, there are different layers to this. We all need to have a balance of that energy, but then when we're talking about two different counterparts, for example, two different people in a relationship, one will personify the divine feminine counterpart while one personifies the divine masculine counterpart. Remember, this setup that I'm talking about, it goes back to the fourth dimensional programming, the fourth dimensional archetypes, and the fourth dimensional matrix that we have here on Earth. Essentially, higher realm energy filters through the fourth dimension and it creates this fairy tale land that I'm talking about. It's creating the setup, the archetypes, and how this physical experience operates. So now, again, back to the macrocosm view, where I said all energy starts as divine feminine energy. This does not mean women are better than men. What it means is we literally all are one. We all are fractals of source. It is the macrocosm versus the microcosm relationship. The macrocosm is everything is fractals of God or source energy. And the microcosm is that the divine masculine energy is a fractal of the divine feminine energy. Everything is related and interconnected. Whether we are a man or a woman living in this earth experience, it does not matter or translate which energy we are at the macrocosm level. On a macrocosm level, it's all just energy. And I talk about how in the white hole universes where we have totally free, totally blissful, eternal lives, we also get to pick how we are personified in those individual experiences. I also talked about how we can have different bodies in these different experiences. So we get to just pop around, and it all depends on what you want. If you want to be personified as more of a female or a male archetype, you get to pick. You are not bound to one experience or one body or one gender even. But there are only two genders, masculine and feminine, because that just goes along with God's divine order and how the energy works. Now let's connect this concept back to the episode on inversions. I said Satanism is not worshiping a red man in a cape with horns. Satanism is taking what is natural and follows God's divine order and then inverting it. Let's take this back to the Bible and the story of Adam and Eve. Genesis talks about how Eve was created from one of Adam's ribs. This is an inversion. I've mentioned how some of the Bible has been altered to manipulate and control. And this specific inversion was done to suppress the divine feminine. I've talked about this in other episodes, but it is the divine feminine that is more spiritually attuned. The divine feminine deals more in the spiritual, while the divine masculine deals more in the physical. I talk about how the dark global elite hijacked the fourth dimension of Earth and set up a false matrix to trap humanity and use them as an energy source. What better strategy to deploy than to suppress the counterpart that deals with the spiritual realms, intuition, and spiritual connection, and then lift up and promote the counterpart that deals in the physical? The fourth dimension matrix is what creates the programming for all physical experiences. If you don't have that divine counterpart with the masculine and the feminine energy working together, and the divine feminine energy is suppressed, then you're going to just be purely working off of the divine masculine energy. And because that is dealing with a physical experience and in the seen, not the unseen, that is how we're going to get stuck in this false matrix. Because you're just looking at the material world. You're taking what you see for what it is. You're going to be stuck in the physical experience that is controlled by a false matrix. This is exactly why the dark want to suppress the divine feminine. The divine feminine will use intuition, spirituality, and dealing with the unseen to get out of the false matrix. Of course, the dark wants that suppressed. And of course, through the ages, those people are called witches. They are killed and persecuted. Those people are called crazy, insane. This is all to keep people trapped in this false matrix of control so the dark can continue to use humanity as their energy source. The dark are parasitic beings. They cannot sustain themselves on their own. They have to get energy from other sources. And the source is humanity. The dark global elite do not want humanity seeing the truth. They want everyone stuck in believing the illusion the false matrix creates. Remember, in white hole experiences, the fourth dimensional matrices are great. It sets up the fun experience in the fairy tale land. The fourth dimension of Earth just has negative connotation because it was hijacked by the dark global elite. And these are parasitic beings, and they control and brainwash humanity by keeping people brainwashed, programmed, and therefore under control. I've mentioned it before, but understanding the fourth dimension will give us so much insight and understanding. Also, understanding and being aware of Earth's fourth dimensional influences and understanding how to navigate this will instantly make us happier. And if you're interested, I have a whole separate episode on that. Because on Earth we are under this false matrix and we are brainwashed and programmed from birth and we don't remember our eternal lives, most of the time when we receive higher guidance, it's actually knowledge we already know or is already stored in our soul. I'll lay out how this incarnation works so this makes more sense. You may hear people refer to as souls, but I believe it's more accurate to call individuals in physical experiences holy trinities. And that's just because there's three parts to our physical experience. Soul is just one part of it. In this explanation, I'll just call them individuals. Some individuals incarnated from Source into Earth and got stuck in the reincarnation cycle or the karmic loop. And individuals got stuck here because of the false matrix the dark parasitic beings put into place. It was actually the fall of Atlantis that switched the polarity from a white hole universe to a black hole universe. Atlantis wasn't on Earth, but it was a realm or experience that was in this same universe. And remember, the white hole or the black hole is what creates a universe. That is the ninth dimension. You have many different experiences or realms within one universe. But if the polarity switches in one universe, it'll impact every realm or experience within that universe. We do archetypally think of Atlantis being on Earth, but that isn't really the case because it was a separate realm. You could get to Atlantis from a portal in the ocean on Earth, though. That probably is where some of this confusion lies. Like I mentioned, everything is extremely nuanced. The sky or outer space and the ocean aren't what we traditionally think. They do not have finite endpoints. The sky or outer space and the ocean are actually portals. Earth is a realm. It's more accurate to say Earth is a realm rather than a planet. But back to what I was saying. Some individuals got stuck in this Earth realm and stuck in other realms in this universe when the false matrix was established. And that was at the fall of Atlantis. Part of the false matrix programming was the system of the karmic loop or karmic trap. And that was set up to keep people trapped as an energy source, essentially. I talk about it often, but death on Earth is just an illusion. You could actually say death on Earth is actually freeing because we're freed from this experience. This is not what is natural to our soul. We're used to total freedom, total bliss, and popping around to whatever realms and experiences that we wish. So if that's what we're used to, the dark global elite parasitic beings needed to set up some way to keep people trapped here. You may have heard this group called Earthbound Souls. They are individuals that have been trapped here on Earth. There were other individuals that were stuck in other realms in this universe, but all other realms in this universe have been freed. Earth is the last realm under the false matrix. If you're living on Earth during this time and Atlantis really resonates with you, maybe you were incarnated there when it fell or shifted polarity. And maybe you were freed at some point and now you are here on Earth to help. I want to go in a little side note here because I think this is really interesting. So I said how the universe Earth is in used to be a white hole universe. And there was the fall of Atlantis, and that was when this universe flipped polarity from a white hole universe to a black hole universe. So that means every realm in this universe would be created from a black hole universe and have duality and polarity. And I said all of the other realms have already been freed essentially, and Earth is the last realm that we need to free before this entire universe is then flipped back to a white hole universe. So, all of these stories we hear about negative extraterrestrials or spiritual wars, all of that goes back to this long battle and long journey of freeing every realm of this universe. And then when Earth polarity shifts, the spiritual war is finally won on a big scale. Don't be afraid that when you get out of this Earth experience, there's still evil to fight off. This is essentially the last battle, the last realm to flip. And then this entire universe is going to flip back to a white hole universe. And in a white hole universe, it all resonates in the harmonic resonance of the solfeggio frequencies, which we call the voice of God. And there's no duality, no polarity. It's all bliss, freedom, enlightenment, beauty, love. This is what we archetypally call heaven. So, saying all of that, also, it is no coincidence that all of the planets in our solar system seem desolate and seem to have no life on them. It's also no coincidence that many people living on Earth think we are the only intelligent life out there. That's what it seems, but that is because we are the last realm standing in this universe that hasn't been freed. Okay, so that was a little tangent, but now I'm getting back on topic of explaining how this incarnation works. I talked about how there are some individuals that we have heard been called earthbound souls, and they were essentially stuck here when this false matrix was put into place. And they were stuck here because of the reincarnation trap or karmic loop. And I mentioned how if you really resonate with the idea of Atlantis, it may be because you were living there when we had the fall of Atlantis. So you got trapped there for a little bit, but that is a separate realm from Earth. So perhaps once you were freed, you decided to incarnate into this Earth experience so you could be on a mission to help. Remember, even though we archetypally think of Atlantis being on Earth, it is actually a separate realm, but you can get there from the ocean on Earth because the ocean and outer space are actually just portals. So then there are individuals essentially living in a double incarnation, and these individuals are living in an incarnation in their eternal lives, as I call it, in the higher realms. And then they go on a mission to help Earth. And from that eternal life, they incarnate into this Earth experience. These individuals are being guided by other beings who fully resonate with higher dimensional energies. For these individuals, the version of themselves that is in the higher realm incarnation is their higher self, and the individuals helping guide them on their mission are their guides, spirit guides, or what we archetypally call an angel. You could also archetypally view these individuals living double incarnations as the light workers or earth angels. The individuals who are living a double incarnation are most likely getting divine guidance or tapping into information they already know or have stored in their soul. They more go through a remembering process. For this reason, these individuals may hear information or knowledge and it just resonates with them. It resonates with them because it is stored in their soul. They technically already know it, but they can't fully access it due to the false matrix. And that's the point of this episode. How we can fully embody our soul so we can connect to this information and knowledge we know. This is to live fully embodied. When we are fully embodied, we will be connected to the knowledge, experience, and insight stored in our soul, and we will be connected to our spiritual gifts. we will also remember why we came here and where we came from. This experience is so magical sometimes. I got an idea for doing this whole episode because I was just working on my own personal strategy. I was having some time in solitude, just reflecting and tapping into that higher guidance. And I was thinking, okay, what do I need to work on to level up? And I was guided that I needed to be more embodied. Then I thought, okay, what does that really mean? And then my own guidance turned into an episode. And that's how a lot of this works. I'll be going through my own personal experience, or something will come up in my own life. And a lesson in my own life turns out to be a lesson that I share here. So I love that it works that way. This will come full circle and make sense in the story I'm about to tell. But when I was a little kid, I was obsessed with the movie Anastasia. I really loved the fancy ball gowns and how she didn't even remember, but she was actually a princess. And it really resonated with me, and I really loved it. And I loved how she went on this divinely led journey trying to remember who she was. And like I said, this is all going to come full circle in the story. But aside from liking the fashion and liking the movie in general, I did not know why I loved it so much. And even I rewatched it later on as a teenager and I was obsessed again. And I still love it to this day. But like I said, it's going to come full circle. I just wanted to point that out and bring up that was one of my favorite movies as a kid because it's going to come into play in the story I'm about to tell. So I mentioned how I was spending time in solitude doing my own little strategy session, and it led me to being more embodied. And I thought, okay, how do I do that? And then as I was writing it all down, it morphed into a podcast episode, which I love when that happens because it makes all of this podcasting way easier. It's actually quite magical how this all happens. This info just flows out of me essentially like water. So I don't know, it all happens pretty magically. That's what I'm trying to get at. But right after I wrote all of this episode down and thought, okay, I'm going to be more embodied. I'm going to do all of these things to literally pull more of my soul into this body. So I have more higher knowledge, I have more wisdom, I can share more of this info with everyone, and I can be more connected with my spiritual gifts. And so essentially, I can remember more because, like I already said in this podcast episode, it's truly more of a remembering process. You're remembering all of the knowledge that your higher self already has and is already stored in your soul. You're going on this journey of remembering. During this time, I took a little break. Well, it was after I did all of this. After I wrote all of this down, I think it was the same day or maybe the next day. I'm scrolling on TikTok and I come by one of the people who do those readings on TikTok. And they'll say, take what resonates, leave what doesn't. And sometimes it resonates and really connects with what you're going through right now, or sometimes it doesn't and you just scroll. But this girl in the video says, dancing bears, painted wings, things I almost remember. And that stopped me in my tracks because that is a song from Anastasia in one of the parts that completely resonates with me. If you're not familiar with Anastasia, so in the movie, it starts off with Anastasia at an orphanage and she's an orphan, but she has aged out of it, so she's just on her own now. And she can feel in her heart where she's from, essentially, but she just can't quite remember. And it turns out she's actually a Romanov princess But when she was a little kid, she got separated from her family, and that led her to being an orphan. And in the movie, she goes on this divinely guided journey, you could say. In the beginning of the movie, she's getting basically pushed out of the orphanage because she aged out, and the head of the orphanage is saying, "I got you a job at the fish factory. Go, you've been a pain in my butt." And so Anastasia starts walking out in the snow, and there's two paths. There's a fork in the road. One of the signs is pointing in one direction and says fish factory, and the other sign is pointing in the other direction and says St. Petersburg. She goes up to the sign and is wondering which path to take. And she says out loud, just give me a sign, a hint, anything." And then a little dog pops up out of nowhere and grabs her scarf and is being very playful and is going down the St. Petersburg path. So that starts off her journey of being divinely guided. And it slowly starts being unveiled or unwrapped of who she is. And she actually goes into one of the old castles, I guess you could say, of where she grew up. And now it's all dusty and a little bit of disarray, but things start resonating with her, and she just has a feeling like she's been here, or she starts having some memories. And it's fuzzy, and she's like, "Wow, I feel like this resonates, but I don't really remember anything, but I remember a little. What is this?" It's that feeling. So there's a part where she's looking at the ballroom of this old castle she actually grew up in, and she starts envisioning all these people dancing at a big grand party, and they're all in gowns and dancing in sync, and it's playing this song called Once Upon a December. And that's where that lyric comes from, where it says, "Dancing bears, painted wings, things I almost remember." And then later in the song, it says, "Things my heart used to know, things it yearns to remember." So I thought that was so interesting that all of that came back, that I saw that TikTok and it said that lyric. I immediately remembered my obsession with Anastasia and how, for some reason, it totally resonated with me. I had no idea as a kid why I liked it so much. Had no idea as a teenager why I liked it so much. But now it's making sense. And this lyric about things my heart used to know, things it yearns to remember, it completely translates to our experience here. If you want to think about it metaphorically, no matter how good your life is here on earth, in comparison to a heavenly realm where we experience our eternity, we are essentially orphans. And in those heavenly realms, we are princesses. That is a total metaphor for it all. And like I talk about all the time, we are incarnated into Earth, and we come into this Earth experience and we forget where we came from. We forget who we are. And we're brainwashed and programmed from birth. But then as we go through life, things might just spark that feeling where it resonates with us and we don't know why. Well, we might not know why until we start down the spiritual path of truly remembering who we actually are. And yeah, that might sound absolutely insane to some people, but that's how it works. It really is. But this whole metaphor of Anastasia and our life on earth, it completely goes back to this episode and soul embodiment, and how we need to embody more of our soul. We need to get our physical body in a spot where it can energetically hold that information, that data from our soul. Because when we can pull more of that information into this physical body in this experience, that's when we will start to remember more. will have more knowledge, will have this deeper insight, and will be connected to our spiritual gifts. So it's just so funny and so magical because this whole thing about soul embodiment truly goes along with the movie Anastasia and how she's slowly remembering who she really is. And she thought she was an orphan, but she's actually a princess. That is us, guys. Like, we are so powerful and so divine. We just need to remember it. And to remember that, we need to be able to embody more of our soul. So that's what this episode is about, and that's what I'll get into. But like everything, I like to give a lot of background information so it truly, truly makes sense before I get into how we can do it. It's just really important we understand the full picture and we truly understand it conceptually. So when we put these things into place, we truly understand the why and why we are doing it and why it's so important and how it connects to the bigger picture. So, really quick, let's swing back to the incarnations I was talking about. I mentioned how there once were earthbound souls, and they were earthbound because they were trapped in the karmic loop or karmic cycle. Technically, there are no longer any earthbound individuals because the karmic loop or the karmic cycle programming is no longer in place. Getting rid of that programming was one of the wins by the light in the spiritual war. There were steps to this. First, there was a karmic cycle, and this would trap individuals. And then there was only a karmic cycle if you believed there was one. But now there's no karmic cycle at all. So the last step I mentioned where there's no karmic cycle at all, this was a fairly recent win. So there are some individuals who were at one time earthbound, but they haven't died or ended this incarnation yet. So that just means they're still living here for now, but when they die, they won't be in this loop anymore. They'll be completely free again. Remember, in this earth experience, death is just an illusion. So, like I just mentioned, there are individuals in this current experience who once were earthbound or stuck in the karmic loop, but now no longer are. They just haven't ended this incarnation yet. For this group, things may not resonate in the same way it does for the double incarnation group. And honestly, it's because they might not have that same experience or knowledge that are stored in some other souls because they've been stuck in this one experience instead of freely popping around to all of these other realms. These individuals have definitely learned a lot and gained a lot of knowledge in the earth experience. You just learn different lessons, different wisdom, different insight in different realms. It's just the variety that they're lacking. And that's why some of this stuff might not resonate. The individuals who have been stuck under this false matrix for all of this time, and therefore really stuck in the material world that's all under programming and brainwashing, they're not naturally in resonance with the eighth dimension, which is God or source energy. They have to do things to intentionally raise their vibration and tap into this. And remember, I talked about when you tap in and resonate with eighth dimensional God or source energy, you will receive divine insight, divine guidance, divine knowledge. You resonate and tap into that to learn a lot of this wisdom and information. And yes, that's absolutely possible to do here on Earth under the false matrix, but you have to be very intentional about it and purposefully do it. It's a lot harder to do here than in the totally free realms. It just takes more work to do that. So yes, you can totally learn all of that while on Earth, but it is harder. And there's been a lot of programming, brainwashing, and narratives put into place to stop you from doing this. But do not worry about this. It really doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things because they have eternity. And there aren't many individuals left in this realm who once were earthbound individuals. Most have already been released and are off in the heavenly realms. It is interesting how we view death as so sad, especially if that person was young. Maybe that person decided this earth experience was too much for them, living in this duality. Maybe they had been earthbound, but they were finally free. We just don't know. Death is just an illusion. And honestly, death on earth is actually freedom. Unless you're here for a mission and you really want to complete that mission. It's more sad for the family and friends that are left here. Maybe we should reframe how we view death. I really think our traditional view on death is actually part of the dark's programming and brainwashing and narrative that they want to put out. They want that to cause a lot of negative, low vibe emotions, and in some cases, cause trauma. We truly go through so much needless suffering. That does not mean taking someone else's life is okay at all. If you kill someone else, it is taking away their work and their experience here. It's taking away their opportunity here or cutting short their mission. Now that the programming of the karmic cycle has ended or been eradicated, we all have exit points we can take to end this incarnation and exit this illusion. Your higher self knows these exit points and makes the decision. But accidental death does exist too. I've touched on this before, but the idea that Earth is currently an advanced soul school, and that is why there's so much sadness, heartache, and suffering is a psyop. That is a dark narrative meant to brainwash people into acceptance so the dark can continue to harvest energy from humanity. Like I mentioned, due to this false matrix, we aren't even fully embodied and anchoring in our full soul and full knowledge. Because of that, we aren't really even learning new soul lessons. We are actually fighting to just simply remember what we already know. This is the case for the individuals living a double incarnation. And then the individuals I called earthbound, they are really fighting to learn new knowledge and gain that divine insight. Like I mentioned, they have to work extra hard to even tap into higher dimensional energies like eighth dimensional God energy. So, no, Earth currently is not a good learning place to advance your soul. Technically, all experiences or realms are soul schools, but that's just a byproduct of living in a physical experience. Even if it's a white hole universe with no duality or polarity, you still learn tremendous lessons and you can easily tap in, learn this esoteric knowledge, this wisdom, learn about all that there is, learn about God. You can so easily do that in a white hole experience. You don't need duality to learn lessons. Like I mentioned before, you learn different lessons in the different experiences. We literally have eternity. We don't need to suffer or go through pain to get soul experience. Now, let's get to the main point of this entire episode. I mentioned already that I really like to give a lot of insight, a lot of background, so the lesson at the end totally makes conceptual sense. When it all makes conceptual sense, you understand why it's so important and what it's going to do exactly, and it will help you remember it moving forward. Okay, so the main point is, how do we become more fully embodied or embody more of our soul? Like I said, this will cause you to remember more about who you truly are, your experience, your spiritual gifts, your knowledge, etc. In the past, we never would have been able to fully embody our entire soul while living in this earth experience. our body or vessel would have not been able to energetically hold it all. You can see this energy measured by the Schumann resonance, but as we go through these different cycles of energy, we have periods of really high frequency energy, we have periods of releasing density, and we have periods of integrating that high frequency energy. I talk more about this on my episode on the Schumann resonance if you're interested. Some individuals have done an amazing job at intentionally releasing density and working through traumas. When we release density, we can anchor in more light or high frequency energy and integrate it. As we do this, we are able to embody more and more of our soul. We are at a point that some individuals are able to 100% fully embody their soul. As it sounds, being able to embody this means your physical body can energetically hold this energy or data of the soul. This is mainly tied to sixth dimensional sacred geometry and the sacred geometry of our physical body. I've talked about this in depth on other episodes. We can do things to anchor in sixth dimensional energy, and this energy pulsing through our body then in turn aligns our physical body to the ideal sacred geometrical shape. This ideal sacred geometry of our body will naturally be pleasing to us aesthetically, and it follows God's divine order. It all works in a nice cycle because when our body is in that ideal sacred geometrical shape, then essentially we are a radio tower and our body is able to harness and anchor in more energy. Like I mentioned, you can listen to other episodes for more in-depth information, but I'll go over some things here as well. But also, on a high level, that just means as we get our body more in physical shape and do things to condition our body, that movement is causing our body to move in sacred geometrical shapes that is then anchoring in sixth dimensional energy. And that energy pulsing through our body and our muscles will align us further with the ideal sacred geometrical shape of a body. Does that make sense how that cycle works? And then as our body is in that shape, we'll be anchoring in more six dimensional energy even when we're at rest. So when it comes to movement and activity that gets your body in that sacred geometrical shape that does anchor in six dimensional energy, you can really be intuitive about it. What gets energy flowing in your body? It's not about calories burned, it's more about the geometry of the body in certain movements. Technical sports and movements anchor in more six dimensional energies. I rank them into high, medium, and low on another episode, but it really doesn't matter much. Just do what you truly enjoy. Also, there are some things that anchor in six dimensional energy into Earth's grid lines, but here we are just focusing on what will anchor in energy into our physical body. Like I said, just get your body moving, get your body into shape. Some great things are yoga, golf, tennis, walking, running, skiing, snowboarding, Pilates, weightlifting, martial arts, Tai Chi, swimming, etc. You get the picture. And as it's probably obvious, some of those things I mentioned are quite technical, and then some are less technical. That goes along with the scale of how much six dimensional energy you are actually anchoring in. But like I said, that really doesn't matter. Just do what you really enjoy. Just get moving, do activities you actually enjoy, and get your body into shape. Also, these aren't activities you're necessarily doing for exercise, but they do get energy moving in your body, and that's massage and acupuncture. Both of those also anchor in six dimensional energy. Like I said, intuitively just think about what gets the energy flowing in your body. And obviously, the embodiment part is just a piece of this whole tapestry of spiritual work. You need to have the other pieces in place, like having a healed nervous system. You need to be spending time in solitude and in nature. You can meditate, do all of that great stuff that I talk about. But this is the physical embodiment portion of it all. It's all like a beautiful puzzle. But like I said, it's also very important that we have the other items in line as well. And I've talked about it before, but if you're just starting fresh here, a great first step is to heal your nervous system. That allows you that first piece of the puzzle, which is being able to step back and truly be the observer in your reality. So you're not automatically getting triggered and firing an emotional response at every situation. We need to be able to control that because remember, every emotion holds a unique frequency. And when we have an emotion, we're spewing that frequency out. That's going out into the quantum, and that's going to be pulled back and create something in your reality. We are truly creators, and we need to understand all of this so we can truly be in our power and step into creator mode. So be sure you have that first puzzle piece done. Heal your nervous system, truly be an observer in your reality. Understand that your emotions truly, truly do create your reality. Those are the first steps. Maybe I'll do another episode on these spiritual puzzle pieces, but for now, I'll just summarize the different puzzle pieces I'm thinking of. So, first, heal your nervous system. Be the observer and be totally in control of your emotions, like I just mentioned. Understand the quantum physics of reality creation. Do shadow work and work through any traumas and triggers and move past it. Triggers may come up and arise as you go through life, so this may be ongoing. When triggers come up, just make sure you deal with them head on. Reframe any stories you have been telling yourself. Make sure you are viewing yourself as a hero, not a victim. And this also goes for limiting beliefs. You really need to be aware of any limiting beliefs that you have so you can move past those. Spend time in solitude and nature. Meditate and get your brain in theta waves. Be an intentional creator. Strategize and set intentions about what you want from life and what you want to create. Physical embodiment. Get your body into shape so you can energetically hold all of your soul. It's all about six-dimensional sacred geometry, like this whole episode was about. Eat clean and organic. Get the proper vitamins and minerals that your body needs. Treat your body as a temple. It's literally your vessel and your energetic tool that you use to operate in this physical experience. It is extremely, extremely important. Be intentional about the music, media, news, TV, and movies you are watching or listening to. Just be aware of what information you're consuming in general and where you're getting ideas or recommendations from. And this also applies to be careful where you're getting your guidance from. Don't just take advice from anyone. Really understand the fourth dimension and fourth dimensional false matrix influences that we have on Earth. Understanding these and being aware of these influences will instantly make you happier. Stop drinking alcohol or doing party drugs. Avoid taking pharmaceuticals. So those are some different really important puzzle pieces that will really help you level up spiritually and be your best self. And also, one more thing I want to talk about with embodiment. Don't panic if you look at your body and think, okay, my body is actually far from the ideal sacred geometrical shape. Don't worry. We will still be embodying more of our soul in these times due to the Schumann resonance, but it may just be a little more uncomfortable if we aren't doing things to get our body into the best shape that anchors in this sixth dimensional energy. We might just have some different symptoms. You may see people talk about this when they talk about the Schumann resonance. Your body does not need to look perfect. Just start doing the things that anchors in this sixth dimensional energy. Just start being more active, start moving your body more, and this will really help you anchor that energy in. We aren't chasing perfection here. If you're doing all of that spiritual work and tackling traumas, tackling triggers, doing everything I talk about, and you think, dang it, my body just does not look how I want it to look, that is totally okay. You are still going to embody more and more of your soul. I'm just talking about what will make it much easier. So, like I said, just start moving your body more. Start doing things active that you think are fun, and that will be so wonderful and really, really help. This is definitely something I'm going to start doing more and really be intentional about going to do yoga and doing Pilates because I have a desk job and I sit at a desk a lot of the day. So this is something I'm going to be super intentional about. So it doesn't matter where you are right now and what your lifestyles, just take steps to be active, to get more movement, to anchor in more sixth dimensional energy. It really does not matter where you are. Like I said, we are not chasing perfection here. We are just wanting to do these things to anchor in this energy and embody more of our soul. And also, this is kind of related, but back to the concept of our higher self. When we do things here that align with the energy of our higher self, where we live authentically or we're doing the things that we naturally like to do, that is really high frequency. That is raising our frequency and in turn, raising the frequency of Earth. So, literally, just being authentic to your higher self, your true self, your soul's essence, that is going to help with this polarity shift from a black hole universe to a white hole universe. Living authentically is so important. If you're one of those people who think, oh gosh, I don't really know who I am, I don't know what I like, just start to explore and get clear with yourself and question it and figure it out because truly, when you start to figure that out and you start to live aligned with that and aligned with the things that truly make your heart sing and that just naturally resonate with you, it's so powerful. So definitely do that. Okay, so that's all I had for today. I hope that was interesting and I hope you liked this episode. If you did like it, please send to a friend or your loved ones. Send to someone you think it will resonate with. Give me a 5-star review and subscribe. I know you can subscribe on YouTube and Apple Podcast. I love you all. Have a great week.